Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Richard Marin.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you, Jerry. First of all, thank you all for inviting me to come here and speak. I always enjoy the opportunity to come and speak to local groups. I've done a lot of that over the last 2 years. Right now, I'm on Staten Island probably 3 or 4 days a week. I'm going to be coming to Staten Island, and I'm going to be part of this community. The wheel itself, usually I have slideshows and all sorts of pretty pictures to show, but you know, to be honest with you, given that you're all part of the local community and you all read the Staten Island Advance and look at SI Live, you've seen most of the pictures of the wheel. You know what it's going to look like. You know what it's going to do for the waterfront. Hopefully you like what it looks like. Just to remind you, this is a 630-foot observation wheel, which when it's built will make this the largest observation wheel in the world. The London Eye is 443 feet, the Singapore Flyer 541 feet, and the newly opened Las Vegas High Roller, which I've ridden on all of these wheels at this point, but I just was on the Las Vegas High Roller, that's 550 feet, and this will be 630 feet. But nonetheless, just like anything in real estate, you know, the three things that count are location, location, and location. And to me, there could be no better location. I think the best spot on New York Harbor is the spot that we have. People say, why did you choose to put it on Staten Island, since it's 5.2 nautical miles from Manhattan, which is where a lot of the market for tourists comes from. This is where the city wanted this to sit. Okay, let me make that really, really clear. People wanted to put this on Governor's Island. The proposal was moved to put it on the North Shore of Staten Island. We're the only ones that stood up and said we like that idea. And I think it's fair to say that I liked the idea a little when I first saw it, because I knew it was near the Staten Island Ferry Terminal, and there were 2 million visitors already embedded in that service. But I think it's also fair to say that over the 3 years since that was decided, I've come to think that there could have been no better spot to put this than Staten Island. I think it's going to surprise people what we're going to do here, and that was before I completely understood the breadth of everything that was happening on Staten Island. I certainly knew about the outlet mall, but as I've come to understand all the other things that are happening along this waterfront, this really is a transformative moment for the North Shore of Staten Island, and I think for all of Staten Island. Yesterday, around a little later than this in the morning, there was a meeting of the New York City Regional Economic Development Council, which is the group that basically is responsible for recommending priority projects for funding, special funding by the state. The state has made available a pool of money. Last year we were a priority project along with the 2 others on the North Shore for various, let's just call them political reasons. The other projects got the funding. We didn't, even though we were called the centerpiece. This year we reapplied, which we are allowed to do. And so I was there yesterday, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see both 2 friends that I did not ask to come. I had asked them to write letters in support of our project, which they were glad to do. But both of them showed up unannounced. Borough President Otto and Cesar Clara, the head of SIEDC. Both of whom, but most prominently the borough president, stood up after I spoke for my allotted 3 minutes to talk about my project, and just gave this ringing endorsement for why this was the centerpiece of everything that was to come on Staten Island, and all of the sort of the future plans for development. And it was so gratifying to me to not have to ask him to do that, but the fact that he felt that it was necessary to endorse us in such a strong and visible way. I have to start from 2 basic assumptions, and that is that you like the idea of a wheel on the North Shore, and that you like the idea of tourism coming to Staten Island. But if you start from that presumption, let's just talk about what New York has for tourism. We're up to 55 million tourists a year coming to New York City. And of that right now, about 10 million go downtown. That's expected to rise dramatically with all the things that are happening downtown. Just to sort of emphasize the drama, when NYC & Company, which is the tourism agency for New York City, talks globally and presents globally about what's happening in New York City. They talk about three things right now. They're at the top of their hit parade. They talk about the 9/11 Museum because, as you know, that just opened, and that's a very big deal to a lot of people. It's got a lot of recognition. They talk about the new Whitney Museum on the Lower West Side, and that's about to open very shortly. And then they talk about this project that isn't even scheduled to open for another 2.5 years, called the New York Wheel. Those are the projects that they say are transformative and that are going to make a difference to New York City tourism. Now stop and think about that. They're talking about two things that have just opened or about to open, and something that's going to happen in 2.5 years. If you talk to the NYC and Company professionals, Fred Dixon, right on down through this whole staff, they will tell you that the New York Wheel is going to change the face of tourism in New York City. So when we talk about the people coming to New York, I want to tell you a little bit about our strategy about how we're going to get them here, because everybody has the same concern. We have estimated 3.5 to 4 million people coming out to the Wheel. Empire Outlets has estimated 5 to 6 million people coming to their outlet mall. There are the tourists, of which there are 55 million a year. And then there's what we call the SMA, or the metropolitan area, which has 22 million residents. So we have the benefit of both a huge tourism flow and a very large SMA. I actually think that if we do the right thing with this site, the amount of local attendance will be much higher, but it's all a function of how you activate the site. If all you have is a wheel ride for people to look out over the harbor and then they go home, well, you'll probably mostly get tourists, at least after the people have come and ridden the wheel once. So you do food festivals and you have really interesting activations. You can make this a place, a destination for New Yorkers to come and enjoy, and people from the metropolitan area to come and enjoy. The early returns say between 80 and 90% of the tourists, the visitors riding that ferry, and you know if you ride it during the day, there are a lot of them, 80 to 90% of them say they would get off and come and enjoy the wheel. So as you may know, we're putting in a private ferry dock. And despite the fact that the Staten Island Ferry supposedly has more than enough seats, has more than enough waiting rooms on both ends, a little tight in that 8-minute get on, get off part, but they certainly seem to indicate from the study they did at DOT that they have the capacity to handle the size of crowds that we have coming. We will have a private ferry dock. As to where it's going to be, if you're sitting in the ball field and you hit one down the right field foul line, you know that jetty that sticks out there just a little bit into the bay, sort of the opposite one to where the 9/11 postcard memorial is on the left field line. If you go out there, we're going to put in a ferry dock, but one that doesn't just take front-loaded boats like water taxis, which have, by the way, already committed on a 10-year basis to us to do every other water taxi will be coming for a hop-on, hop-off service to Staten Island. First time that's happened in their 10-plus year history. Where do most of those 12 million people that are on the ferry go? Anybody got a clue? Right now, 5 million of those go to the Statue of Liberty, okay? And the Statue of Liberty, Statue Cruises, which is somewhat controlled by the National Park Service, has agreed with us that it is in their best interest, as well as ours, to make a triangulated service so that those 5 million people have the opportunity to come directly from the statue out to Staten Island. Let's figure out how many of those people we hope to get. And we said if we can get 20% of those people that are going out to the statue, and we get 1 million people coming out here, added to the people that will come on the Staten Island Ferry, added to all the other people from the other ferry services, we're starting to get close to our numbers. I mean, I'm starting to feel more confident that getting 3.5 to 4 million people to come to the wheel makes the difference. What effect has this all had? Now just think about this waterfront now. You have the only half-mile stretch, the only thing even approaching a half-mile stretch of waterfront on New York Harbor, arguably the most important harbor in the world, that's commercialized. New York City has put a lot of parks that are sort of dotted with a little cafe here or cafe there, but nobody has a half mile of activated commercial waterfront. What are the 5 things that tourists come to New York City for? Sightseeing, number 1. Shopping, number 2. Okay, you got those 2 already, right? With the wheel and the outlet mall. Sports. They also come for culturals. Well, every 3rd shuttle bus of mine goes out to Snug Harbor. Snug Harbor and Staten Island Museum, what a great fortune that their timing has it, that them renovating and completing their new museum. Noble Maritime completing its new museum. The 5th one is theater. And the St. George Theater, for those of you who don't know it, this is the 3rd largest theater in New York City. It's magnificent, it's been renovated. That will round out the things that people come to New York to see. People that come for 2.7 days on average to New York. Okay, you're going to spend 1 night in Times Square. What do you do on the 2nd night? Because we want to own the 2nd night for all tourists that come to town. Nobody else, has the opportunity to do that. We're putting on a 30-minute light show with $7.5 million worth of LED lighting on the wheel. By the way, it all shines out to the water. It's not going to keep people awake. Compared to the ballpark lights, it's nothing in terms of what it does to the upland areas. You need to work with us to figure out how to take advantage of that. And that's what I would say to all of you. We're kind of bringing them here. By the way, by bringing them here, I'm not guaranteed that they're all going to ride the wheel. And I don't care about guaranteeing that at this point. We have all our various marketing tools and mechanisms to convince them to get on the wheel. But the point is, if we bring them here, we've gotten 95% of the way to where we need to be, because that 5.2-mile harbor is the barrier. When I look at what the people at the Regional Economic Development Council want in a project, a priority project, think about this. They want a project that will relieve economic distress. That part of Staten Island has its share of distress. I think we all understand that. They want projects that will have a transformative role. I can imagine nothing more transformative than what the wheel is doing. And hopefully you all agree that it's for the better by virtue of bringing tourism here. They want something that's highly feasible, and fully financed. We are fully financed. I have $310 million of debt financing. I have $90 million of equity financing. I'm still looking for a little more here and there, but the truth of the matter is we've got plenty to get this job done. They want things that are interregional. They want something that has measurable impact. They want something that's leverageable. That's where you all come in. And they want something that emphasizes innovation. And we are creating something more akin to the Washington Monument or to the St. Louis Arch. And I love to sort of tell people that coincidentally, we are 630 feet tall. The St. Louis Arch is 630 feet tall. The St. Louis Arch is the gateway to the West. This is the gateway to America. Finally, this is going to become the kind of site that we call it iconic. What that means to me is that this is something that every Staten Islander and every New Yorker can be proud of. Stand at the ballpark and look up at the highest of the light stanchions, 125 feet. Now do this, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how high the wheel is going to be. This is going to be an iconic, beautiful structure. This is going to be a really interesting process to watch this being built. It's going to be a really interesting process once this thing is built, watching the tourism flow to this site. Of all the projects that are going on right now on Staten Island, the big projects, we have 820 parking spaces for commuters right now. And let me think, all during construction we will have, 820 parking spaces. Right? That's a small way of trying to help the community. A big way is actually providing the 820 continuously, because let me tell you, building around 820 parking spaces was no mean feat. But we did that because we thought it was important to the community. We want to be a good citizen. I think if you talk to all the culturals, they will tell you that we have been a great partner for all of them. We'd like to be partnered with all of you.